Your phone buzzes. You check it. Nothing. You check it again 10 minutes later. Still nothing. Your chest tightens. Your stomach drops. A message you sent 3 hours ago sits there, unanswered. And some part of you is convinced something is wrong. That feeling is not in your head, it is in your body. And your body is not overreacting. It is running a program that is millions of years old, and it does not know the difference between a delayed text message and a death sentence. Here is the reframe: rejection does not feel like disappointment, it feels like danger. And there is a reason for that, buried deep in the architecture of your brain, that has almost nothing to do with texting. Start with the body. When you feel excluded, the same regions of your brain activate as when you feel physical pain. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger and her colleagues at UCLA discovered this using a simple digital ball tossing game. Participants believed they were playing with two other people online. In reality, the other players were programmed to eventually stop passing them the ball. As the exclusion set in, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex lit up on the brain scans. That region is the same one that activates when your hand touches a hot stove. Your brain does not have a separate alarm system for social pain. It borrowed the one it already had for physical injury. Why would evolution do something so strange? Why route heartbreak through the same circuitry as a burn? Because for most of human history, being cast out of the group was not an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. There were no solo survivors on the savannah. A human alone, without a tribe to share food, defend against predators, or care for the sick, did not last long. The people whose brains treated exclusion as a 5 alarm emergency were the ones who fought hardest to stay connected, and the ones who stayed connected were the ones who survived long enough to pass on their genes. So, the wiring that makes a delayed text message feel unbearable is not a glitch, it is an inheritance. It is what kept your ancestors alive. Psychologist Kipling Williams spent decades studying this exact mechanism using what he called the cyber ball paradigm, a version of the same digital ball game Eisenberger used in her scanner. Williams found something remarkable. It did not matter if participants were told the other players were computer programs. It did not matter if they were told the other players were members of a group they despised. Being left out still hurt. The brain's threat detection system does not check credentials before it sounds the alarm. It does not ask whether the rejection is rational. It only asks one question: am I being cut off from the group? And if the answer is yes, it responds the same way it would to a predator in the grass. This is where the story gets stranger. Because your nervous system was built for a world of small tribes, maybe 50 to 150 people, where every relationship was tracked in person, face to face, over years. It was never built for a world where you can have 300 online contacts, most of whom you have never met, and where a single unanswered message can trigger the same biological alarm as being physically abandoned by your entire group. Sociologist John Cacioppo, who spent his career researching the effects of loneliness on the human body, found that chronic social disconnection does not just feel bad, it changes you physically. Lonely participants in his studies showed elevated cortisol levels, disrupted sleep patterns, and immune systems that behaved as though the body were under constant threat. Your nervous system, when starved of connection, does not calm down and wait patiently. It escalates. It assumes the danger is still out there. It keeps the alarm running. So, what does that mean for the pit in your stomach when someone leaves you on read? It means your body is running an ancient threat assessment on a piece of information it was never designed to process. A text message carries almost no data. You do not know if the person is busy, asleep, driving, or simply distracted. But your nervous system does not wait for data. It fills the silence with the worst case scenario. Because for most of evolutionary history, silence from your group usually meant something had gone wrong. Silence meant you had been left behind. Silence meant you were no longer being watched over, fed, or defended. Silence was rarely neutral. Here is the counterintuitive twist. The intensity of the feeling has almost nothing to do with the size of the actual threat. Eisenberger's later research found that people with the strongest neural response to social exclusion were often the most socially secure individuals, not the most insecure ones. The alarm system is not a measure of how alone you actually are. It is a measure of how much your brain values the connection in question. The stronger the bond, the louder the alarm when that bond feels threatened, even briefly, even by something as small as a pause in a conversation. This changes what the sensation actually means. That tightness in your chest when someone does not reply is not proof that something is wrong. It is proof that your brain has correctly identified a relationship worth protecting, and it is doing what it has always done. It is trying to get you to act, reach out, repair the bond, close the distance. In a small tribe of 150 people, that impulse worked. You would find the person, address the tension, and the alarm would switch off within hours. But you are not in that tribe anymore. You are in a world of asynchronous replies, time zones, group chats, and read receipts that show a message was seen but not answered. The alarm still fires. The environment that used to resolve it quickly no longer exists in the same way. So the feeling lingers, it refreshes, it checks the phone again. Think about the last time you felt that specific dread, the one that comes from watching three dots appear and disappear without a message ever arriving. That is not a modern anxiety. That is a Pleistocene one, dressed in a phone case. The mechanism has not updated in 40,000 years, only the trigger has changed. There is something almost comforting in that. The feeling is not a personal weakness. It is not evidence that you are too sensitive or too needy. It is the oldest survival software in the human brain, still running, still doing exactly what it was built to do. It cannot tell the difference between a friend who is asleep and a tribe that has abandoned you at the edge of the grassland. It was never asked to make that distinction. It was only asked to keep you connected, by any means necessary, because for nearly all of human history, connection was the only thing standing between you and the dark. So the next time your phone buzzes, and it is nothing, and your chest tightens anyway, remember what is actually happening. It is not weakness. It is not your head. It is 100,000 years of ancestors who did not survive being alone, running the same old alarm through a body that has never learned there is any other way to be safe.